Welcome. This is Driving User Adoption, a very long title, Driving User Adoption from a Technical Standpoint for SharePoint, Exchange, and Office 365. I'm Laura Rogers.
I'm Lori Gowin. And just so that you're aware, and we can set your expectations correctly for this, this is not a business-focused session, nor an end-user-focused session. So if you're in here and you're one of those people, this is stuff you want to take back to your IT pros and get them to do for you. So if you're an IT pro, this is where you're going to figure out the stuff that you're going to do. So just so that you're aware and you're not disappointed thinking that it's going to be something that it's not.
Right. It doesn't hurt to be a business person in this session, so you can know what the IT pros should be doing.
Exactly. So a little bit about me. I'm Lori Gowin. I am a Microsoft Premier Field Engineer. I specialize in SharePoint, Office 365, and whatever else they tell me to do. I help run the Birmingham SharePoint User Group with Laura here. I also am one of the founding members of Women in SharePoint. We have an organization to support and network women that are in technology, specifically in the field of SharePoint. And then there's my contact information, blog, email, LinkedIn, Twitter. You can find me.
I'm Laura Rogers. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I live in Birmingham also, and I work at Rackspace Hosting. Rackspace is actually hosted in, the headquarters are in San Antonio, and I work at home. I work in my basement, so that's really nice. I don't get out much. Written some SharePoint books. I've got a blog here, wonderlaura.com, Twitter, wonderlaura. Sometimes when we're teaching these sessions and people ask us questions here and there, I'll say, oh, I wrote a blog post about that. So that's where you'll be able to find that one. And also we have a little bit of background on just us because it goes way back. We met in about 12 years ago or so. We worked at a large healthcare company as server admins. We were Exchange admins. And so that's where we come from. We come from being, server admins. And then over the years, we kind of went to different companies, went our separate ways and stuff, and stayed friends. And we have a sort of interesting perspective for teaching this session, though, because we've been on the IT side of it. So we know we're very familiar with that whole toolbox, what IT pros have to use, but we've also got a lot of experience over the last 10, 12 years working with the business and finding out what end users' experiences are, what they need, what they expect. And so we're, and a good example scenario I have for kind of why I wanted to do this session was the example of promoted links or promoted sites in Central Admin. I remember saying to my boss at the time that, look at this setting in here. This looks interesting. Maybe we could do something like this for our company. And she said, well, the business hasn't asked for that. And I remember thinking, well, the business doesn't know it exists. So that's kind of the whole gist of what this session is about. Did I forget anything about the...
No, I think that's it.
All right. The agenda is, we have three main sections of this presentation. The first two are going to be a little faster, and the last one, the solutions, is going to be, there's going to be much more to it. So the user adoption issues is, what are the specific complaints, the specific issues that end users have when using SharePoint, Office 365? What are their pain points? What are some very common pain points that we see? And then we're going to talk about you as an IT pro, what your tool set is, what your just fundamental things that you have at your fingertips. And then the bigger part with a couple of demos is the solutions to the issues that we talked out at the beginning and specific things that you can do on your servers and in Office 365 admin, Central admin to be able to help those poor end users.
Yes. So we're going to start with issues. How many of you like it if you're an IT pro when people call you and complain about SharePoint? I don't know that they're human. They're still the zombies from last night. I don't. But this is some common things that we all hear from end users, common complaints. We're going to go really fast through these. This is just kind of an overview slide, and we'll talk about kind of the things you might hear. Laura?
Okay, so this lack of awareness of Office integration. If you open up Word or Excel, those programs that people use day in, day out, you might not have noticed, or the end users might not have noticed, that there's a share and there's a save as, and there are ways to save things straight to SharePoint from in those programs. And so end users don't have to remember to go to SharePoint or remember where their site is or try and drill around and look for where that library was that they were saving things that they were working on, because those recent places and those SharePoint locations are right there. And that's what the end users are doing. They're just doing their job every day. They're just working in their files that they collaborate on. They don't necessarily care or care to go through all the steps that they think are a lot of steps to go save something in SharePoint. So the end user answer to that is there's a way to just manually add locations just on your little Save As screen. But as an admin, there's a way that we can actually promote those locations out from within some settings in Central Admin Office 365 Admin. And there are also, not only that, but there are, with using audiences, there's a way to even target some of those locations to specific audiences of people. And there are several different settings in group policy. So group policy itself has got hundreds and hundreds of settings. If you download and we have the links out on Yammer, like a list of links in the slide and a list of links in our little Yammer page that has what I'm talking about. But group policy has hundreds of settings that you can set from the server end that are pertinent to settings inside of Office, and some of those have to do with just having quick locations for people to save things to, among many other things.
Right. So users hate to log in over and over and over again, right? That's the thing that they complain about the most. You know who I am when I logged into my computer. It should just know me, and it should just work. Why am I being prompted over and over again? And so there's some things that we can do for them. We can tell them how to do it themselves, how to fix it so that they don't get quite so many prompts, know what IE settings they need to configure. Or we can push some of those things. And even from a perspective of if you have users using Exchange and Outlook Web Access, we can even configure some things there for them so that it makes it easier for them to immediately be logged in from their client machines, so that they don't complain to us while they're being prompted over and over and over again.
Yeah, you set up your internet zone in there, and you set up your IE security settings that you want to be pushed out, even things like what you want the default homepage to be for everyone. All right, another annoyance.
The App Store. Why can't we have it? You know, users want to be able to go to the App Store. They've gone somewhere, they've seen, ooh, we hear about this App Store, like, and they all have like those devices that have apps all over them. I just want to throw apps everywhere. And then we tell them, yeah, you can do that, and then we don't give them the App Store. Or then we give them the App Store and we just put everything in it, and then they go, I don't know what I need. Like, what does this do? It's overwhelming. If you actually go out to the SharePoint online App Store, has anybody gone out there lately and seen how many apps are out there that almost all do the same thing? So which one do we choose? How do we know? Where do we find it? So there's some things that we can do to help them understand this, and we're going to talk about how we can manage that for them so they're not overwhelmed, or maybe things are already there and they don't have to think about it. Okay.
Clutter. So clutter is kind of in a couple of different places. We've got clutter in SharePoint, and we've got clutter in like just organizing things, and we've got clutter, the technical term that's new in Exchange. So one of the common complaints we get from users is just quickly needing to be able to move a file from one place to another in SharePoint, from one site to another, or to a folder, or archive it somewhere because, you know, this file's a couple of years old. Do I really need to leave it here? And it's been kind of clunky. They have improved it drastically, especially in Office 365, but that is definitely one of the things that I hear a lot.
Right. And then, you know, email. How many of you have inbox 0? There's a lot of laughter
Not this week, right?
Yeah.
After being out.
No, you know, and for somebody like me, I get about 4,000 emails a day. Yes, I really do get about 4,000 emails a day. If my phone was not on silent up here, it would be ding, ding, ding. And I have to have a way to manage that. So now we've got some cool new tools that we can use to help manage that within our email as well. Managing all of that noise that sometimes we just need to filter through and figure out later, maybe. And just be able to focus on the stuff that we need right now.
Finding files kind of goes along with that as well.
Right.
Finding, you know, an attachment that you sent, a file that might have been in SharePoint. Where's just the findability concept of just having things all over the place, which is getting even more interesting with groups now and OneDrive and all these different places people could possibly have things.
Right.
So they complain about losing files and not being able to find them.
Mm-hmm. So that's definitely a user complaint. I can't find what I need. And then, of course, now we want to be able to take it with us anywhere we go, and wherever we are, we want to be able to just work, right? So we want to work on those mobile devices. Why is it hard to get my phone to work with this? I can't get it to connect. I have to, what's the server name? Where's the information so that I can configure my email on my phone? Because we want to carry just one device, right? I remember the days of carrying my personal phone and the whatever device was assigned to me at work, and then sometimes even a third for on-call. Really? Should I have to do this? We don't want to do that. So we want to make it easy to be able to configure that on their personal devices and also manage those for them. And then we also want to make it easy for them to be able to work offline. You know, a lot of people are traveling, especially the next 2 days. Anybody going home today? Okay, yeah. So a lot of people are going to be traveling today. Some airplanes and some airlines do have Wi-Fi now, but a lot of them don't, especially those smaller planes. And we still want to be able to get stuff done. So we want to be able to make sure we enable our users to do this.
What's that saying? Mobile first, cloud first?
Mobile first, cloud first.
Keep hearing
right?
everywhere.
Yeah, we want to do that. And we even want to be mobile while we're up in the clouds, right? Oh, this is a big one, right? It changes all the time, right?
Especially
something
Office
new.
365.
Especially if you're on Office 365. I get that all the time. Like, why does it change every day? It seems like something's different all the time. But even with different versions or when we patch something, something might change in our environment, right? And so there's several things that we can do. You know, our users are used to versions, kind of, because, you know, there's new versions of Xbox games every year. There's new versions of phone operating systems every so often. Everybody's used to updates. But then they just don't like it when they don't know, right? That's the big thing. How do we deal with it when we just don't know when it's going to change? And the look and feel changes, and where do I find it now? And, you know, they've moved site settings from here to there to there to there, and, you know, I think they're going to just bury it at the bottom of the page in the next one or something. You know, it's like a scavenger hunt every time. Yeah, scavenger hunt, find the site settings. So how can we help prepare them for that change?
And now these are just the tools that you have at your fingertips as admin. So this is just the overview slide: Active Directory, Group Policy, Central Admin, Exchange Admin, Office 365, and we'll go over that. There's your server. There's your data center. Look how neat and clean it is.
Right. Mine's never that neat and clean.
Right. So this is a picture of Active Directory, and there are a few different things. Just, you know, of course, you have the Active Directory profile import. That's sort of a no-brainer. A lot of, you know, admins, you've set this up, and that's just the crux of having all your profiles in SharePoint. So, but it's the single version of truth where all your users are. And, you know, a lot of companies, they might even have like PeopleSoft or some other system dumping all your users in the Active Directory, and the Active Directory is sending over to SharePoint. But keep it, you know, synchronize it with SharePoint. Make sure you have those jobs scheduled. We have this concept of audiences. A couple of the solutions that we're going to talk about in the solutions section have to do with using audiences. Does anybody actually use audiences in SharePoint? They've been around since 2007. So audiences are very powerful. They let you use just attributes about your users to group them into dynamic groups, like based on their job title, what AD group they might be in, their department that they're in, just various things. So, and since it's dynamic, and it helps. And then there are a lot of things you can do from the end user perspective to customize their experience for them based on what audience they're in. And then just for a directory, this is my pet peeve. Do you guys have end users or your business come to you a lot and say, I want to have a people directory on my SharePoint page. I want to have a directory of people in my department, because I guess people like to go print that out and put it on their cubicle wall. I don't know. Is that a request that you? I get this a lot. I get this a lot as a consultant, people saying they need to have a directory. So this is your directory, though. Active Directory, that's where all the people are. And just use SharePoint search is kind of what the idea that Microsoft is trying to get you to do is not try and build some separate thing. Just go type the name in the search box and use SharePoint search. So it's important to have all your Active Directory up to date, and especially that manager field in there. The manager field make sure when you have that correct, it makes the whole org chart work correctly. And even if you're doing things like having workflows that will, look at who somebody's manager is in, based on their profile, things like that it helps to have your AD up to date.
Group policy. So this is really, we had so much fun playing with this. Fun. It really was kind of cool. We were like, ooh, that sounds interesting. So there's a ton of group policies that you can use to help push things out to your end users. Things like your settings for IE, pre-configuring links and things within Office, workflow even stuff within Office, which was really cool.
Yeah.
Like we found stuff and we went, didn't even know some of this existed. It was really fun to play with and see some of the settings. There's so many settings for integration between Office and SharePoint. Because let's face it, our end users, they're not IT for a reason. They don't want to be technical. They want to do their job. And maybe they're an accountant and they're more comfortable in Excel. And now you're making me go to SharePoint. Now we can give them, through group policy, ways to interact with SharePoint right there from within Excel, where they're comfortable and where they're happy.
I spent hours of my life testing this stuff for this session, and it was really interesting because I had Office on my own laptop, my own personal laptop, and I also have Office on a virtual machine that's the version of Office that I installed from Office 365. And I was applying these group policies and troubleshooting it and trying to, logging in over and over and GP results and all these things to try and figure out where these settings were supposed to be appearing. And it turns out that the ADMX files, the group policy administrative templates that you download for Office 2013, which we put a link to in here, those are really for the Office 2013 Professional, not the Pro Plus, which is the one from Office 365. So you'll notice there are actually a lot of pretty drastic differences in the registry in the one from Office 365, so that was kind of driving me nuts, but just something to be aware of. They haven't put out like any kind of administrative template for the Pro Plus, but it's just registry settings. So as an IT pro, if you want to spend hours of your life as well, go into those little files that it sends you, and I just kind of started doing a find and replace and started tweaking things to try and make it work for who, if people might have that version of Office. So just kind of a little heads up on that one.
Yeah, and be aware that if you're using, if you as IT pros, maybe you have an MSDN subscription and you download that one, and then your volume license one, and then the Office 365 one, they all have different registry settings. So what you need to also make sure is that your organization is sticking to the same version of the truth so that everybody has the same version. That's really one that I've seen a lot. Where people maybe will install it using Click to Run for some of their users, and then other users, they'll build it into an image using their volume license. And then the IT people, because we're always playing with stuff or downloading it from MSDN, and then nothing the experience is not the same across all of those when we start setting these things up. So really, that's another thing you need to take back to your business and make sure that you do. Everybody needs the same version of the truth.
Especially on any one given person's computer. There are issues that you come across when they have multiple. If they have maybe Office 2010 and they've gone and downloaded OneDrive plugin from Office 365 and they have that's kind of your mixing versions of Office, and Office doesn't like that. So trying on any one user's computer, trying to make sure they have just one version as well.
Exactly.
All right. And just another tool we have, this is just a highlight of some of the settings that we're going to be talking about. This is a screenshot of creating a user profile service where the promoted sites and links are. And, of course, you can customize the search experience. You can manage your app store, manage your service applications, and even DLP. You guys might have noticed a lot of really cool new things around DLP and information rights management this week, and some really neat sessions. Stuff has been added in Office 365 just since we created this session. So.
Exactly. And then there's some stuff that we're going to kind of mention that's not really there yet that we've seen, and you may have seen in some of the sessions that you've been to. Right now, it's kind of in that, I think you have to be in the special high-level ring to get to some of that, But it'll be there eventually.
Yeah.
So there's some really cool stuff. The Exchange Admin Center, this is where you're going to configure your stuff for Exchange. We are going to touch a little bit on Exchange. It's been a long time since we've had to mess with Exchange. I had to dust off some skills and go play with Exchange, and I went, oh, goodness, it's been a long time since I've done this. But configuring some things in there, you're going to use your Exchange servers to help manage your iFilters, things like that for search for within your Outlook and being able to find things in there. So that's another admin tool that you have at your disposal to be able to work with.
To me, the whole concept of user adoption isn't as tough with email as it is with things like going to SharePoint or Yammer or anything like that, because email, that's their comfort zone. That's what they're used to. They're familiar with email, so it's not like you really have to drive them to use email, but it does help to make it a little less painful for them with some of these. All right, here's the meat of the session. The solutions. What can you, the admin, do besides reach through the keyboard and
there's a lot that you can do. So this is just some of them, like promoted sites, configuring authentication, managing the App Store, browser settings. Then we have even more that you can do using search and send to locations. And then there's like just this random extra stuff. There was so much, we couldn't fit it all on even 2 slides probably if we tried to name out each solution we're going to talk about.
As we were putting this session together, we had all these sort of main things, and then we're like, oh, what about this? And this, and this other thing is new, and we need it, So there's a ton in here.
We could spend all day. If y'all want to camp out today, we can just spend all day doing each one of these.
So there are not a ton of demos in this session, but there's so much content. There's so much just information we wanted to get out to you guys just so you'll be aware of a lot of this stuff. We are going to demo a couple of things, but there's so many things to go through just in the slides that we just couldn't fit a ton of demos in here. But here are 2. These, I love these, and these have been around since SharePoint 2007. They exist in Office 365. It gives you the ability to manage promoted sites and publish links to Office client applications. This means that if you want people to, when they open up Word and they click File Open or File Save As, you can target specific SharePoint locations to them, and you can even target it to them based on what audience they're in. So if I'm on the marketing team and we have a marketing team SharePoint collaboration site, I can say, okay, everyone in the marketing audience gets this as a location in Office automatically. So again, this one's my favorite for just making it easy for the end users because they are in Office all day long. That's what they do. So just have those quick locations that they can save. You can also, the personal site URL and Active Directory, just kind of thing that I mentioned in here, is the first time someone clicks on their My Site to go to it, it actually creates this. It puts an attribute in Active Directory. It fills in this www homepage attribute, but that's kind of where that comes from, that ties the user's profile to where their specific My Site is. So that's a good thing to know about if that's something that you want to push out via group policy. And then the push links to commonly used libraries and sites. You can have different types of sites and links to choose from. You can even associate an image. So if, again, it's like the marketing team site, you want to have the marketing logo or the IT logo for whatever you're putting out there, you can put the little cute image of that. And I'll show you where that's going to be displayed. And then you can even, the downloading administrative templates for Office 2013 is one of the links that we shared with you. And again, there are hundreds of settings in there. It's really fun to kind of dig around and find those.
Yeah, and when you use those, there was this one we found that was really cool. It was for workflows, where you could push the workflows into there. So you can like have them be in whatever they're in and have default workflows already set up on a library. They can be in Excel or Word, and they'll have the workflows when they go to their backstage view, and they can just fire off a workflow from that document while they're in it, which was really kind of cool. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's just very obscure.
Yeah.
I think we might even have that on the next slide. Okay. A screenshot of it. Custom template locations. Look at this. This is a special little, what I have circled over here. By default, when you open Word, you have just your, set of templates that Microsoft spits out for you. This is where you can do your own company's templates. So this is actually a document library with content types in it. So you do, create all your content types, associate your company's templates. I don't know if it's an expense report or a memo, letterhead or something like that. You put those templates as content types in this library. And that's where that's where it can show up here. And I've even noticed that kind of even recent libraries that I've been to in SharePoint that have templates as part, of the content type, those will show up there as well. And they'll all just kind of be there for me to choose from. So I can open up Word, not have to go to a library, and just start filling out a template and start using that, and again, not have to go anywhere else.
Don't change it yet.
Okay.
How many of y'all are using content types?
All right, good.
Oh, that's better than I thought. I get a lot of questions about content types. I am a big fan of content types. I think every organization, the first thing you should do is go in and create your own content types, because your users will thank you for it. When they go somewhere and they just see new document, it's just this blank thing, right? If we create our own custom content types, maybe with our logo in them and things for our company, it just gives them a little guidance towards what they're doing. And we can create these for them. Like you can go ahead and pre-create your own communications, because communications always does that, right? We want this PowerPoint template, right? It's got to be branded this way. It's got to look this way. Go in there and just create a PowerPoint template as a content type that is your company content type. It can be Contoso PowerPoint template, and put it in there, and then put it in this library and sync it down, and it's smart enough to know what the content type is, if it's Word, Excel, or PowerPoint. So if they're in Word, they only see the Word content types. If they're in Excel, they only see the Excel content types. If they're in PowerPoint, they only see the PowerPoint content types. The only one it doesn't work for is Access, which that's okay, because why would you want content types and templates in Access, right? We're not going to do that. So we're just going to, Access is the stepchild off to the side. But we can do it for all of those other types of files that we use.
Yeah. And this is the workflow thing that you were talking about.
Yeah, this was cool. You showed me this one, and I just was like, ooh, that's neat.
Okay, so the idea, now this is not going to be applicable to every scenario that you have, but the idea behind this is that you have, back in SharePoint 2010, they had, every library already had the approval and the collect feedback workflows associated with it, but in 2013, you might have noticed in Office 365 that you actually have to click to add a workflow to any library that you want to use these out-of-the-box workflows in. So the idea behind this setting is that you could have just one library that you could call your workflow library, and you could have the workflows already associated with that library. And that way, just no matter where they are in SharePoint, no matter what file they're working on, it will, when they click the backstage view, it will have this little workflows option, and it will take them to that library. With whatever file they're using, it will take it to that special library and let them run the workflow there. So, I mean, it's kind of an obscure setting, and it's kind of, it's not going to match every scenario you need it for, but it's good to know that it's there, right?
Exactly.
And that's going to be, that's group policy, so that's going to apply to whatever OU that you apply that to. All right.
How many of you name your SharePoint environment? 1 second, sir. Nobody names their SharePoint environment like
something other than SharePoint.
Something other than SharePoint.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay. A few of you do? Okay, so now we can name our SharePoint environment, call it something. If your users are going to something like the source or whatever you're calling that environment, then when they see it in their save menu, rather than it seeing as SharePoint or the URL or something, you can actually call it what they call it as a common name, right? So it makes it a lot easier for them. And then, of course, you can save straight to it and all of that. He had a question. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Can you come to the mic? That way everybody can hear.
I can talk louder. The question was, back 2 slides when you were talking about the, sorry, I just lost
content types?
Nope, after content types. Would you recommend saving the workflows to your content hub? Content type hub?
No, because then you're going to have content going to your content type hub. So it would need to be a library where people have the ability to contribute and run the workflow from there, and then you can move it and archive it to wherever you need it to go from there.
Okay, so it would be one per library that you have the workflow
Exactly.
on.
I mean, technically, you can associate a workflow with a specific content type on that content type, but that's a completely different scenario. That's going to be that's not going to be using this setting. But yeah, you could do that just in the content type settings.
Okay.
All right, so this is the setting. This is the, yes, oh, sorry.
Hey. So, hi. So about half of my remote workforce is on Office 2010 and half is on 2013. So when pushing out these various links and all this jazz, fun stuff, to their Office apps, is that going to have any negative impact or effect by they're not all on the same thing?
Oh, well, the promoted links and the promoted sites to Office, the promoted links to Office applications, that's been around since 2007, so it will work in 2007, 2010, 2013. As far as the group policy stuff, though, there are multiple administrative templates you would need to download and put in your group policy on the server to just be able to set up those templates to talk to all those different versions, because the registries are different for all the different versions.
Yeah, it's just going to make it more complex. You're going to have to do 2 versions of Office now and settings for both of those versions.
Awesome.
Okay, so this is the demo of managing the sites. When I go to, I'll show you what my list of sites looks like in Office 365. Welcome to OneDrive for Business. New. Go to sites here. Oh, right. Let me just go to the promoted sites thing. Go to admin. I'm probably not logged in as an end user right there, so that's what I need to do. Let me show you where this is in admin, in central admin. Go to SharePoint. And I go to my user profiles.
And this is the same location in central administration that you would do it as well. So you would just go to central admin, go to your service apps, go to user profile service, and then follow from there. The steps are exactly the same.
Right. One thing that is different in between on-premises and Office 365 is that when you create audiences, in on-premises you can actually click the button to compile an audience and you have control over when those audiences get compiled. And in Office 365 there is no button to compile an audience, and they only get compiled once a week on whatever time or job is on the server that you don't have access to. So here's the
I don't
setting.
even have access to that server either.
So you don't have access to that?
I
You
don't.
work at Microsoft.
I
You're
know.
supposed to have access
Everybody
to all
thinks
that stuff.
Can't you do this for me? No, I can't.
All right, this is the managed promoted sites. This is in Central Admin and Office 365. These are the sites that we've decided to promote. So I'm going to go ahead and log in as an end user over here. I'm going to open up in private browsing so I can go log in as a different user in the browser, because it gets very confused when I don't do that. ODFB demo.
It has lots of uses.
For banking, right?
Banking. Anybody in Laura's pre-day on Sunday? Laura and Todd Klemper? Okay, so you heard that joke before.
Okay, this is where I'm going to see the promoted sites. So you probably noticed this before, and you might have noticed these little squares across the top of the page. You'll notice this little manage button that you have at the top of all those links. That manage button lets you directly manage it here on the page, but it doesn't give you the same capabilities that you get when you go over to SharePoint administration and manage these. So it's only going to give you the ability to give it a link. Yes, Tamara?
Does that manage thing show up on every user's screen, or does it only show up for people who are admins?
Does the manage link show up for only people who are admins or everybody? I believe it's just admins. The people, like each individual user, when they click, follow to follow a site, that's where kind of all these sites are going to show that show down the page. But end users don't have the ability to manage the ones that are promoted to everyone.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a funny concept, the manage promoted links, because just like when you're developing an intranet or anything for your company where you have a home page and it's very splashy and you have all your links to all of your departments, when all the departments in your company find out that you're doing a new home page, they all think that their department or their thing or their project is the most important, and it needs to be on the home page. It needs to have a link. So when your departments find out that this is something that you can control and configure from the admin side, they're all going to want their stuff pointed out to everybody else. So that's always a little fun conversation to have, to tell them, take them down a notch a little bit. So, but this is what it's going to look like for the end users. You can see I've got some of these different 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different links here like this. And then when I go over to Central Admin, I'm going to take this sales and marketing one, and I'll show you what the settings look like. So it gives you the ability to give it a URL. So where are we going to take them to? What's it going to say on the tile? And this uses that pretty little sort of promoted links looking look and feel. The description is what you see when you hover over it, just like all the other tiles in 2013 Office 365. And then the image URL is the pretty little image that you see on it. So I'm going to go ahead and target this sales one to the sales audience. And that's an audience that I've pre-created of everybody in the sales department. So now I went ahead and targeted that.
Are you in
I'm in
sales?
sales. No, I'm not in sales.
She's not in sales.
I'm technical. So now I go back in here as an end user. My end user that I'm logged in as is not in the sales audience, not in the sales department. Pretty cool. So now it disappears, right? So do you think that's helpful to be able to target those and have thanks?
Yeah, so those departments that say we want to be at the top, well, we can put you at the top, and then we'll just put you at the top for your people, right?
Yeah, there you go.
And only those things that really reach across the entire organization would not have that audience. Maybe the main intranet homepage or home site. And then, but the company site collections and the collaboration and things like that, you can target those to specific people so it's easy for them to get to and easy for them to find.
Yeah, and ultimately this would be a great just start page for just end users just in general when they're starting their day. You could even use it as a home page to just say, go here, here's the stuff you need to see, and here's all the stuff that you're following that's important to you. One of the things that, again, when I was testing this out in Office 365, I was a little disappointed because when you click the Manage button, you don't get the ability to target to an audience. So again, you have to go to Office 365 to get the ability to actually target that link to an audience.
And one thing that we liked about this, when you create the new link here, you get the ability to do the site template synchronization. In Office 365, that doesn't work, but the setting is still there. But it does work on-prem. So on-prem, you can actually go in and do the
that's this one, right?
Links,
the publish links.
Yeah, publish links to Office client applications. When you do this and you do the Office synchronization for templates, in Office 365, it doesn't pull it down for the users. There's probably some group policy that you can configure to do that. I haven't found the right one yet, but I'm sure there's some registry settings we can hack into and find it. But when you just set this up initially, know that on-prem, it will sync those templates down so that when they go into Word or Excel, and you can have your own company templates in there.
Yes, this one's a little bit different. This is not just the sites page. This is going to be the just inside of your Office applications, and this one's a lot trickier than the Manage Promote sites. It's the one that I did a whole bunch of testing on. So you have a title, you have a description. This one you can give it an image as well. It's not really clear where that one shows up though. But then you have a lot of different types. So you can say, I want this to be a site. I want this to be a specific library. I want it to be a document library with template synchronization, which is what she was just mentioning. So what this looks like to the end user is when they're clicking File Open or File Save As, that marketing team site, if you target it as a site, will be there, and then when they drill down, they're just seeing the list of libraries that they can save things into. So it's almost like this concept of, what's the new thing in OneDrive where it says site folders? So it's kind of like the concept of site folders, but you don't have to have Office 365 to do it.
Exactly.
And then, so you can do it as a document library. The document library with template synchronization is going to be the one where you say, this specific document library has a bunch of content types in it that are our templates that we want people to get. And so that's the one, that's the URL that you're going to put here and push that one out to the users. And then, of course, you can target the audiences for those as well. Really, really neat stuff. All right. Any questions about that demo? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Silly question. I might even supposed to know the answer, but if they pull a template with a particular content type, save it into a library that doesn't have that content type, brings all the metadata across, adds that content type to that library?
It would not add the content type to the library. It would just be saved as a generic content type to that library. You would have to turn on Manage Content Types for the target library and then be able to add that then.
And so we'd lose any metadata?
You might, unless you have the document information panel, because then it would probably save it within the document itself.
Well, okay. That wasn't a silly question then. Okay.
It was not a silly question. There are no silly questions.
Yeah, because you'll have that, if you have metadata on whatever template that you're using, they'll have it in that little panel at the top inside of Word. So you don't have to go to a document library and hit edit properties to be able to edit metadata. It is something that end users can do inside of Office. I think I can show you that real quick so you'll get a little better feel for that end user experience.
While you're doing that, there's been 3 questions. Yes, sir, go ahead again.
I've got to finish up on this one. So if that'll put the metadata into the document, but when that document hits the new library, it'll only be in that document, correct?
It'll still be in the document.
But
it just
not
won't
on the
show-
library.
Not in the
That's what I
library
thought.
until you turn on the content types and set it as that content type. I have a couple of larges and a couple of extra larges for those that ask questions. If you want a T-shirt, I don't throw. You can.
If
come
you
get
open
one.
just real quick, if you open a file, yeah, go ahead and, yeah, you can throw.
I can't reach over there. Where's the gentleman? Yeah, you
Come
right
get a
there.
T-shirt, or
your
come get a T-shirt later. We'll just keep
Yeah.
track. All right, this is the screen that we were talking about right here. So it's if you are in a file that's in SharePoint and you don't see the little panel across the top, you can go to your Backstage view and say Show Document Panel, and that you can see that I turned on enterprise keywords in here, and so that's in that specific whatever library I'm in. That's the metadata for that library. So a little bit more clarification to your question is that if the library has a content type and the content type has metadata, the library will inherently have that metadata. So when someone's filling out the content type, they will have access to that metadata, and when then they hit save, it puts it in the library where the metadata already is. Does that help? Okay. All right, so I think that was that demo. All right, flip it back. Cool. Send to locations. Does anybody ever use these? Send to locations. A few. Mm-hmm. These are pretty powerful. You can create locations, and this is something you can't do from just within a site collection or something. It's only in Central Admin. So you can create specific locations to be able to send files to be able to archive them, or have a specific place pertaining to some topic that you want people to be able to quickly send things to. Copy, move, or move and leave a link. And you can even allow or disallow manual submission by users. And you can even create content organizer rules that use these.
Yes, so content organizers are one of my favorite things. I've actually been able to go to some places and set this up for their companies. Like an entire company just drops everything in one place, and they've got the rules set up so that it automatically routes all that content to where it needs to go.
And
now,
users don't have to know where to save their files?
No, they
all
don't
put it
have
in
to
one
remember.
place?
They just go drop it in one place, and then it goes where it needs to go. And then they're using search, of course, to find that data and to reveal that data back to the user. So the users don't have to remember where it is. They don't have to do all of that other stuff. Now, there's a lot of pre-work that goes into that. Those content types I told you about, you have to start using those content types in order to get this stuff to work. And it's a really cool tool. It makes it easy and seamless for your end users. I call it, makes it idiot-proof, right? We all want to be idiot-proof. And you can just drop it in one place. It goes there. But you also have to remember to set up people who will monitor that. Because inevitably, there's going to be something that gets dropped in there that doesn't match whatever the rule is. And then they need to be able to go in and monitor that and fix those rules and adjust them. So that could be you as IT pros. It could be some business users so that, hey, you as IT pros can go focus on other stuff. Right? So turning on some of this stuff and teaching your end users how to use it really makes it easy for them.
For the send to locations, will that work for their OneDrive for Business space too?
Will send to locations work for their OneDrive for Business? Well, when you set up send to locations, you're pointing it to a specific library, a specific URL that everyone would be sending something to, but the users can send it from their OneDrive to a send to location, if that's what you're asking.
Well, I was asking in terms of if you just tell everybody in one place, instead of them having to remember where their OneDrive for Business is or go through the app launcher or something like that, I need to send a file here, and then the rules pick that up and redirect it to there, so it'll appear on their mobile devices and things like that.
That would be difficult.
It doesn't really give you variables.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. It doesn't really give you variables when you're setting these up. So it'd be tricky to be able to have each one know which end user to be able to go to. So
Yeah.
but the opposite, you can do the opposite, send it from your OneDrive to
Yeah.
some other place.
Send
So
it
what
backwards.
you're going to do on the site level is a site feature called Content Organizer rules. Then once you turn on that site feature, you get, it creates a drop-off library in your site, and it gives you all these options. And then the send to locations are what you're going to go into Central Admin or Office 365 Admin and set those up and define all those places. Like you might have a whole portal where you keep your company policies, and you want people to be able to send the company policies to it, or you might have a whole portal that you've set up for just archiving files and let users be able to quickly send something to an archive. So this is what the admin interface looks like on this screen. But again, when you're setting this up, you as the admin are defining what the action is going to happen when someone uses that send to location.
Yeah, that allow or disallow manual submission by users, a lot of that's really important when you start looking at things like e-discovery and working with that information, because you may have some very sensitive information or information that you need to be collecting, and your end users being able to just submit whatever they want to that. You may not want them submitting to your e-discovery site.
So if you have it allowed for manual submission, people, when people go to a library, go to a file, you click a file and you look at the file ribbon in that library and you have the little send to button, they will visually see that and have that to select from. And if you don't allow it, that's where they won't.
Yeah, it wouldn't show up in that list.
All right, Content Organizer rules would be the automatic way to do it.
Exactly. Data archiving and cleanup, this is kind of fun. We talked about DLP. And we developed our own term for it. Instead of data loss prevention, it's kind of data loss enforcement at this moment. Now, you've seen some really cool stuff that's coming up regarding this. There's some really, really neat compliance things and auditing things that were, if you were, what was the session we were in yesterday?
Sarat was his name.
Yeah.
It was a session on external sharing.
It was an external sharing session yesterday afternoon. He demoed some of the stuff that's coming up. Now, that's really cool stuff. It's not there yet. But right now, you do have the ability to go ahead and create compliance policies in Office 365. You can also do some of this stuff on-prem as well. But it's things like retention and deletion policies. Basically, you're enforcing deletion and cleanup of that old data. Like, maybe you've got a whole bunch of project documents sitting out there and you've tagged them with the right content type. So we want project stuff 6 months after the project is done. We don't care, right? And maybe it just needs to go away. This is cleaning it up and making it easier for your end users to find really what's relevant now to them. Right? So we can enforce that using these compliance rules that are already there and made available to us. How many of you have used Clutter with your Outlook so far? Anybody? A few of you? I like Clutter. Clutter is a really cool thing. So this is something that with Office 365, it's already there. For Exchange on-prem, you have to go configure this, but it's only available in 2013. It is not available prior to 2013. So if your Exchange is not on that, sorry, you need to upgrade. So you turn this on, but your end users then have the control to turn this piece on or off. So we need to really train them and teach them and get them prepared for what they have to do. So they have to go in Outlook Web Access. You can't turn it on from Outlook itself. You have to go into Outlook Web Access to turn on Clutter. And once you turn it on, it's going to take all of that stuff and it's going to kind of learn what might be relevant to you and what might be urgent and what's just kind of that stuff, that email like newsletters and things and mass emails that come out that like I have so many. But like if I sign up and I go to a Yammer site, I'm automatically signed up for all those Yammer emails. Anybody get Yammer emails? Right?
You can turn those off in Yammer.
You can turn those off in Yammer, but instead of turning them off, I want to go look at them later, but I don't want them in my inbox constantly and my phone going off all the time. I can turn on Clutter, and it'll go into this new folder that it creates for you called Clutter, and it'll just sit there and wait for you to come and then, oh, yeah, this is Clutter. No, this is not Clutter. Some important things might get in there, and you can go into Outlook Web Access again, right-click on it, and say, this is not Clutter, and it learns what you're saying is Clutter and what you're not saying is Clutter. You can even say, hey, this is Clutter, and it'll start moving all that to your Clutter so you don't have things junking up your mailbox. Inbox 0 is our goal, right? It'll never happen, but it is our goal.
This is one of those screenshots that we did a couple of months ago, and it's already way out of date. So now
Yeah,
when you go
exactly.
into Office 365 and you click on compliance, it's got like 5 new things now on that screen.
Actually, I think we just did that one last week.
Yeah, so that screenshot will have changed. But just real quick about the policies is basically all it is you pick a date, like modified date plus 5 years, or whatever date plus however many months or years, and then you just say when that date arrives, do you want it to automatically get deleted or automatically go to the recycle bin? And that's all there is to it. So information management policies are a separate thing that you could do. Those are more like on a content type or on a library that are much more specific, that have a lot more options. But these are going to be like if you want to set it up for an entire site collection or or anyone who uses any specific template in Office 365 for a site template. Those are what you're going to use those for. All right, so this is the group policy stuff. So from the end user perspective, I don't know if you might have talked end users through doing this before, because they keep complaining about getting prompted for logins when they open SharePoint, when they open a document from SharePoint, things like that. They can go into their IE settings and go to their intranet, whatever zone that particular site is in, and do custom level. No, for me, I work with a lot of client SharePoint sites, so I just put all my client SharePoint sites in the trusted sites and just do the policy there. But you're going to go in there, and the important thing is to choose automatic logon with current username and password. That is the trick. That will pass their credentials on their computer, and that will and remember who they are and not prompt them every single time. So this is going to be set per IE version when you set it up inside of Central Admin. You're going to add your trusted sites. You can add your homepage default, whatever you want that default link to be for everyone when they open their browser. And you can set up your security settings. And this is where this little sort of these paths that are listed here, that's where you can go in group policy to go find those settings. Oops. Any questions? Anybody do this? Do you do this at your company?
Good.
Cool. You have
Everybody
a question?
should. There should be way more hands in here.
That automatic logon with the current username and password, is that only for what you set up as your local intranet?
She said the automatic login for current username and password is that only for your intranet. In this screenshot, it is. So if the site that you're on falls into what you've defined as your intranet zone, then that will apply. So, but you can also go, hit trusted sites and do the same exact thing there as well. You just go to all the different zones and set that up. But in group policy is where you're actually going to define what sites are considered to be in that zone. So you can say if it's like www.contoso.com or intranet.contoso.com, that's considered intranet. Yes? He said, is this just on premises or can you do it with Office 365? That is a great question. If you have your Active Directory on premises and you actually have group policy, then you can do this on premises. Office 365 and Azure Active Directory doesn't have group policy.
Yeah.
So they would have to be logging on to your domain to be able to have a group policy applied to them.
Right, but you could actually, if you've got single sign-on configured, but you still have your on-prem domain and everything, when they log in, you can configure this and put those Office 365 sites in these zones, and then it will work, as long as you've got your single sign-on configured correctly.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what site you put in
There's
here.
a question over there, too.
Cool.
So have you ever encountered scenarios when, this is fine for just intranet, let's say, or just the browser, but quite often users have to open other files that are stored in SharePoint, for example, Excel. And browser is working fine. It's not prompting you for multiple authentications, but when they try to open Excel, they get authenticated. And how would you advise to remediate those kind of scenarios?
In my experience, when I set this up, it applies across the board. And when I set this up, I usually don't get prompted across Word or Excel or anything else from that point on.
There's some registry settings you can set for that as well, and you can push those via group policy. I have done that as well, yes. So there's some registry settings on that.
Are you referring to auth forward server list?
I don't remember. I'd have to look up the group policy, but there's some registry settings. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I have done that. And there's actually, I think, some documentation on that. Yes, Jared.
I was just going to say, real quick, when you push out the settings through GPOs, there is a maximum length to the URLs.
Absolutely.
Which is a key problem. At a former company I worked at, that ended up causing us issues. So.
Oh, yes. So there are that. So like star works though, wildcards. So if you can do like star dot whatever, and then stars at the end also work. So remember that if you've got just a general domain and you don't want to list out every site, definitely make use of those wildcards. All right, we're going to have to move fast. Yeah. Configuring Outlook Web Access. This is another one of those things where they don't want to log in the same every time. So you can actually configure integrated Windows authentication for your internal domain users for Outlook Web Access, which is kind of a cool thing. There's a lot of businesses that are moving to that thin client where maybe we're not installing all the Office products on there and we want them to use Outlook Web Access, but they still log on with a domain username and password and they want to be able to do this. Now we can do that and we can configure that integrated Windows authentication for internal and domain users. This works for both on-prem and Office 365, right? So you can go in, you can set this up. You used to have to, in previous versions, like set up 2 things. Guess what, 2013, you don't necessarily have to do that. It works really well by default. Yay!
You're a nerd.
I know I'm a nerd. You can also configure a default domain for your FBA users. So those people that are out there and they're off your domain and they're trying to log in, you can configure that domain to be there by default so they don't have to type domain /username and things like that.
Nice.
But they can still do that if they want to, or especially if you're managing multiple domains, but you can have like one default that's out there just to make it easier for them. So there are less complaints about how much they have to fight with logging in to your environment. Managing the App Store. Apps provide solutions beyond what we already have, right? It's those things where we want it's almost there, but we want this little bit of extra.
Some of them are redundant. Some of them are really the exact same thing you might already have.
Some of them you may already have. But, you know, a lot of people are creating apps, right? It's the direction we're moving. Self-contained things that aren't going to take down our entire environment. As an IT pro, I'm all in favor of that, because the last thing I want is for you to call me and say, we ran this code and our whole thing crashed, and then I have to go figure it out for you. But what we also need to think about is how we're going to manage these and deploy them strategically. Too many apps really just confuses our users, right? Like they go in and they're just overwhelmed. Which one do I pick? How do I choose? What do we do with it? So there's some cool things we can do. We can pre-deploy these things by some specific methods, and I'm going to show you these. We can target a specific template, which is really cool. So maybe we've got a project template out there, and we've got a project app that we've built, and we just want it there anytime a new one is spun up. We can deploy it by path. So managed path, anybody familiar with managed paths? I should see every hand. Managed paths, you know, /site/ something. Okay, managed paths. We can deploy it by a specific managed path. Now, there's some limitations with this for Office 365 because you don't get to create all your fun little managed paths. But on-prem, you can create like /projects or /teams or /marketing and then whatever marketing sites below that. And you can target that managed path. So no matter what template you pick, they get the app that you want them to have. And then, of course, we can deploy them to specific URLs for them. But we also really need to make sure that we're monitoring these and controlling these, especially controlling access to the store. Because if they go out there to the store and your end users haven't been, you haven't locked it down appropriately, your end user can go out there with their own credit card and buy whatever apps they want.
Has anybody seen that happen? They just go bonkers and start installing everything? Yeah. You
It
can
happens.
control that.
It really, really happens. All right, so really quickly, I'm going to show you what this looks like. Are we going to flip over here to...
I got it all ready for you. There you go.
You do have it all ready for me. Yay. All right.
Well,
So there's a couple of things that you can do. Of course, this is from SharePoint. So we're going to go into Office 365 admin and then go to the SharePoint admin. On-prem, you would just go to the apps section in Central Admin. There's a pretty easy link to get to. Once you get there, you can manage the app catalog. You can go ahead and purchase apps if you want, like if you all have done some investigation. You can configure access to the store. That's going to be who's going to get to go to the store. Are they going to get to see them? Will they be able to just buy things willy-nilly? Or will they have to request those purchases? I always recommend at least, at minimum, set it up where they can only request a purchase. Because that way you as the IT pro still get to have some control, some help, some guidance. Hey, why are you purchasing this? We may already have something that does this. Things like that. Or you can turn it off for your users. Then you, as the admin, can then go out and purchase those things and deploy them to your users. Once you've purchased apps, you're going to work with them in the app catalog. Now, I've gone out here and I've just gotten a free one, a free app for SharePoint. And guess what? It's the, oh, where is it? Why is it not there? Didn't we do this yesterday?
We did.
Are we logged in as the right user?
Just do it again.
All right, so we'll just get a new
Apps
app.
for SharePoint, yeah. It was Yammer that we were testing it with.
Yep. So
we have so many Office 365 tenants. It's just, yeah.
Were we on a different tenant yesterday?
I don't think so.
I didn't think so either. So let's go to the store app catalog. Apps for SharePoint. Why is it not showing me that?
Add an app.
I have add an app, but I don't have my app. There we go, SharePoint store. We'll go grab one. Hey, who wants a free app?
Everybody wants Yammer. You have to have Yammer.
So we're going to grab the Yammer app for SharePoint because everybody needs the Yammer app for SharePoint. We're going to click add it. Trust it.
It only had 1 star.
I know, it only had 1 star. Don't we love Yammer. We love Yammer. We're adding your app, and we're going to wait a minute.
So with the location that you're in right now is the app site the apps site collection, right? As you're managing this. So this isn't, you're not just in an individual site. All right, so it's available now.
So now if we go to apps for SharePoint, why isn't it showing it there? Yammer app for SharePoint. There we go. Don't give me a hard time. So there's the Yammer app for SharePoint. It does all of its fun little stuff. When you go to deploy this, you have to come here. That stupid thing is going to keep beeping at me. And you have this option called deployment. Now you have to actually go into the apps for your environment, deploy it to your app catalog as if you're going to run it on your app catalog. Then you get this option for deployment. Then you can come in here to deployment. Come on.
You never know how long it's going to take with Office 365.
There we go. Now, here's our options for deployment. We can deploy it to a specific site collection or multiple. Like we can add lots and lots of site collections and just put it on specific ones. We can do it by managed paths. See, you only get one option in Office 365. Now, if this was on-prem, all of your different options were there, and you could select it and say, yes, everything under /projects gets Yammer, right? And they just automatically get it.
Could you do that for the stuff that's in all your My Sites, like everything that's under your personal maybe? Because that's
I don't think it's listed in there, but it is a managed path.
Maybe that's an on-prem thing.
We'd have to look and see. I'm not sure on that one. But you could also do site templates. So like if we wanted all of our blogs to have Yammer, we could say, yes, give all of our blogs Yammer so that we have the Yammer app within our blog sites, right? So that would be kind of a cool way to do this. So this is just some ways that you can go ahead and pre-deploy some of this stuff for your users so they don't have to think about what do I need, where am I going to find it, what do I do with it, how does it work, how do I install this?
I've had customers come to me with a list of like 20 apps and say, which ones of these should I put in my Office 365? I'm like, I don't know what any of those are. So, yeah, just don't overwhelm them.
That's the
crux
big
of
thing of this.
Yeah.
Any questions? Pretty cool? Okay. All right, let's get back to this because we got to hurry.
Okay.
You got the clicker.
Search. There have probably been 15 or 20 other sessions this week on search, but it's just one of those things we wanted to point out that you as an admin have this in your toolbox. You can configure search. Query rules are very powerful. Just for example, if somebody's typing a search in, doing a search in SharePoint and they use the word presentation in their search, you could create a query rule that says anytime they use the word presentation, make the results be PowerPoint presentations.
Right.
And that's just a small example, but that's the kind of power that you have with those.
Yeah, the search analytics is pretty cool as well. I always recommend that you should have somebody that's monitoring this information, especially these two, abandoned queries and no result queries, because you're going to then know what people are looking for and what they're not finding. Like they've looked for something and they just don't see what they need, so they just give up, right? Or they look for something and nothing shows up. Well, what are we missing? Are we missing some metadata? Why are we not finding this information? You need somebody that's monitoring this and looking at these things that your users are looking for so that we can make sure they find what they need. All right? New and changing services.
A whole bunch of stuff.
This is when your users go, it changes all the time. How do we keep up with this? So some of the new services that you've probably heard about this week, Delve, Office Graph, the video portal, those are some new ones that have already been released. There's groups coming out. There's all this stuff that's coming, right? So how do we prepare our end users? So some things you need to know, like with regard to Delve, if you're concerned about it and your users, you don't know if they're ready for it, you as the admin for Office 365 have the ability to go turn that off. You can just go in and say, no Office Graph for us. No soup for you, right? And then they can't use it anyway. So, but if you turn that on and you leave it on because you need it maybe for Clutter or for some of those other things that rely on the Office Graph, then you need to educate your users. They have the ability to opt in or out of Delve. So you can come in here, and I've kind of got the little thing on there. It says share activity. Do we want to share our activity or not share our activity? That's your opting in or out of Delve, right? So we just need to tell them and educate them on these things. Same thing with the video portal. We need to prepare them for what the video portal will do for them and prepare them for it. The look and feel, that's a little bit more of a challenge. Watch for those announced changes. We do try to get them out there somewhat, especially if they're going to be big. You'll see them on blog posts, things like that. But these resources we have listed off to the side, as an IT pro, you should have these bookmarked and check them every day, because they're going to give you that information that you need to prepare for what's coming down the line, especially if you're on Office 365. Okay?
And they just this past week announced a new thing that's like that's an official newsletter that you can subscribe to as an IT pro, letting you know all the new things.
That Yammer link, I think, has the link to that newsletter.
Yep, they just announced it.
Mm-hmm. Extra things that you can do to make it easy and fun for your end users to work with. They're fun, right?
These are just sort of separate things that you can install, as an admin. Some of them on premises, some of them not.
If you're on-prem, definitely look at the Office web apps. Those beautiful sessions that your users have seen where they can hover over stuff and work with the document right there within it without actually having to go download and open the document or use anything else, that's all provided by the Office web apps. So if you're not installing that and your users want that experience, they're going to complain to you. So be sure that you install some of these things.
It's a separate server.
It's a separate server. It's a separate thing that you can manage. Workflow Manager is the same way. It's something separate that you have to set up and install and configure for them. Incoming email. That's one that, sometimes doesn't get much love, but your end users love it. If you turn on the ability on-prem to have incoming email coming into your SharePoint environment where they can just email a document into a library, they love that because then they don't have to go to SharePoint. They just know the email address and send it right there.
So if you don't have that, you're going to nag your server admin, if you're on-prem, to install that. OneDrive settings, Todd and I did an entire session about this Sunday. There are things you can do in Central Admin to be able to point to your Office 365 OneDrive from your on-prem if you want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Keeping up to date with patching, especially service packs. I don't always recommend that you do every cumulative update or any other little patch that comes out because, those aren't tested quite as thoroughly, I just have to admit, as the service packs. But service packs, I definitely recommend you at least, at minimum, are keeping up with those service packs and any required security patches, especially for your users, because they need to be confident in your system so that they will use it.
Now, for Office 365, you don't have to worry about patches and service packs. Isn't that awesome?
That's really nice. Configuring offline Outlook web access, which is really cool. So if you've got thin clients, they can still use offline in a plane, their Outlook web access. You just have to turn that on and configure it so that your users, maybe your executives that are traveling and using iPads or whatever, are able to then still use offline access for their devices. Auto Discover, this is another one. Make it easy for me to do it on my phone. That's where you can just type in, anybody configure email in your mobile device, just type in your email address and your password, and it just knows. You don't have to remember what servers or what ports or any of that. Your IT pros have to configure all of that for you, especially if you're on-prem. Otherwise, you have to then know what your server names and all of that are for setting up those mobile devices.
And they'll call you a lot.
And they will call you
through that
repeatedly. What was that? What was that server name again? What was the port? Yes.
And then they'll start calling you names.
Then they'll start calling us names. So here's a whole bunch of resources about all of this stuff that we have talked about. There's a ton in there. Just the resource kit, group policy stuff, links that you want to go and check out and download. We tried to make sure that you had as much information as you can handle.
I do a show every Wednesday at 11 Central called SharePoint Power Hour. It's on youtube.com/SharePointRAX. I do it with my team at Rackspace, and it's just free, streams live. People come ask us questions, and they're all archived in there. So a couple of these references are to specific power hours that we did, especially the one on the Send To locations there. Mm-hmm. All right. Awesome. That's the last slide. Thanks, everybody.
Just a couple more. If you have any questions, you can either ask them or find us, whatever you'd like. We got about 4 minutes before
let's
they're
let them
going to
use
drive
the
us
microphones, I guess, to do that. So it's organized. Yes.
Hi. I haven't heard anything in a while about things like using alerts or search alerts or even the Connect to Outlook features. I was wondering what your thoughts might be on those as far as assisting
I think search alerts are really powerful, and I think with that specific thing that just not enough people know about them, and they just don't notice that setting. The alerts, search alerts, those all just work, and they're very just a core thing that people just part of the SharePoint bread and butter that people use. And what was the very last one that you mentioned?
Connect to Outlook features.
The tasks one is they've changed that a little bit, the way that one works, but those they just still work in 2013. They just they haven't done any kind of improvements to them.
Right, and you can kind of auto set those up if you push them out through the My Sites as a template so that people don't have to do it all themselves, which has always been an issue. And you can manage people's alerts for a whole site to do it for them.
Yes,
I just haven't seen these things talked about much. And
You're
I was
right.
wondering if
That
there was much of a
alerts would have
reason.
been a good thing to mention. So if you have a SharePoint group, you can set up, if you have an announcements list or something on a SharePoint site, you can set up an alert to send, when a new announcement gets added, just send it to that SharePoint group. So you as an admin can do that. And but when you do with a SharePoint group, they can all individually opt out if they want to.
Right.
If you use an Active Directory security group that's email enabled, it's an AD group, then they're not split out individually. So it's just sending it to the group no matter what. So that's the other option you have.
That's useful. And then doing that as a digest rather than instant notification.
Right, there you go.
So you're not spamming them, but you give them a weekly all the things that have happened.
Yep.
So,
Good idea.
I think it's nope, that's the large.
I'll let you go over here. Oh, sorry. I'm going to alternate.
Is the video portal only online, or is there an on-prem version of
The
it?
video portal is currently only online, and I believe they said it's going to be on-prem in 2016. The video portal, I think they said it's going to be on-prem in 2016.
There was something they announced. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
When you have your app set to request an app instead of them just being able to deploy it, can you set up an alert so that you know when somebody's requested an
Ooh,
app?
that's a great question. Lori, do you know?
Large or extra large? I'm sorry.
When they set up they request an app, does that alert you? Is there a way to set up an alert when people do that?
I don't think so.
We'll have to look in. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. That's a good question.
That would be some good feedback, right?
You can do that? No? You don't know? Oh, okay. Yes. Over here.
Hello?
Wait, there are 3? What?
There's 4.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm sorry. Well, let's go to this poor guy over here, and then we'll just use the other ones.
Hi, you may have covered this. With OneDrive, looking to see how you can do a file save as and have it appear in the save as location.
Oh, that is...
With the OneDrive app, it will add it to the favorites, so it's reasonably located, but directly in the save as.
I understand exactly what you're asking,
Okay.
and I wish you could do that. The only way that will happen is that if the user has actually, they've already provisioned their OneDrive, they've clicked on OneDrive, it exists, and then they've gone to the OneDrive and they've opened something, edited something in there. After they've done that, it will appear in the Save As. And I bugged Microsoft about this the other day, about just being able to push that out like through group policy or something. I spent hours of my life trying to figure out a way to do that, and it doesn't exist yet. But they do know that people are requesting it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was very passionate about that. I wanted to get it to work. Yes.
So with the change from SharePoint 2010 to 2013, we lost a lot of the analytics that were very detailed and phenomenal in 2010. What are your recommendations for additional tools we can utilize to give our users, our site owners, what they want, which is that detailed info?
As far as web analytics, the concept of web analytics didn't really go away. It's really just that it moved over to search. So they're using the whole search engine to provide you with the analytics. So there are a whole bunch of queries and things that you can do in search administration to be able to find those same kind of numbers. It generates Excel reports for you. I'm not sure if there's, an API or how else you could tap into that stuff with any kind of BI product, but that's the crux. They moved it to search. So it didn't completely go away. It's just kind of in a different place. Okay. Yes?
When you have a new service like Delph, instead of turning it off, is it possible to target it to certain users so you can do some piloting instead of having the whole company have access to it?
Can you pilot something like Delph? You can pilot, I know, OneDrive specifically, because you can put a target audience in there when you roll that out to only go to that target audience. I don't think that Delve and video portals, those don't have any kind of target audience or ability to do that, unfortunately. You could turn it off or turn it on. Yeah, maybe they'll add that, hopefully. Yeah, I'll go over here.
For our Macintosh users, is there a way to change or to do the automatic authorization, the sign-in?
Mac users? I have no idea. I think, do they have a registry?
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Those poor Mac users. Yes.
Hi, this is for pushing Internet Explorer settings. You said that you can do it for Office 365. Is it possible to do it for multiple tenants?
So she's asking about pushing the IE settings. The way you do it is that if they're logging on to your domain on premises, you have Active Directory, you have group policy, you're going to set that up through, in group policy, in Active Directory, you have OUs. So if you have maybe different OUs in your Active Directory that are organized by what tenants people use, then technically you could create separate group policies for those.
What if I want to give, I ask because we work in a conglomerate, so we have a group tenant and then we have different business unit tenants. And we would like to give the business units single sign-on to the group tenant as well?
It's just a list of URLs that you're basically putting in there. You don't have to do just one. So you can add them all to it, and then it would just apply to all those different tenants.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. What? star.sharepoint.com, star.contoso.com, yeah. Something.sharepoint.com, yeah. Yeah, hey.
Hi there. Is there a way to put a link on everyone's My Site through any of these?
Is there a way to put a link on everyone's My Site? That's going to be the promoted sites. Is that what you're thinking?
Someone wants in that left nav, left.
The left nav in the My Site?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. I had one other question.
Okay.
Can I ask it? There's this Office store and the SharePoint store. When you go into a site, we've set it up so that they request from the SharePoint store. Is there a way they get to the Office store, and what's the difference?
I've seen from what I've seen, they get to the Office store when they're in Outlook. There's a link kind of buried in there to be able to go to the Office store to be able to install like apps.
Someone wants to install apps on SharePoint that are in the Office store. And I've said anything in the SharePoint store is fair game because Microsoft has reviewed it. I guess someone's reviewed the Office store as well.
The Office store is going to be things that show up in Outlook, like when you're using OA. And
so they're not going to go on SharePoint anyway. So they've asked me for something that isn't SharePoint enabled anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Deployed through SharePoint, but they're for Office programs. So you'd have to know what specific program they're asking for.
They're asking for a banner. That's a SharePoint thing.
Yeah, if it's a banner that needs to show in SharePoint, it's not Office.
But they said they found it in the Office store. So
I don't know. We'd have to, you and I can, you're customer mind. We can go look at that. Yeah, we can go look at that together and figure that out. Yes?
When you were talking about pushing content types to the Office client, could you use like the content type hub to push all of those content types to the Office client, but not necessarily use it as the save as location? So you could define everything in your O365 content type hub, so then it gets disseminated to all your sites, but you're only referencing one place, and that's where all the content types are?
No, what you would do for that is you would, people are coming in for the next session, is you would have all the different locations that they're going to and have the content type in those libraries and then just deploy all those different libraries out as your promoted links. Okay, yep.